But, like, hockey, like, they can score 2 goals in, like, 8 seconds apart, and then you have a whole different game. And it's like, what is happening here? You know, you're never really out until even the last, like, 30 seconds. They're still fighting for the game. Like, they're not giving up, and they're still playing. Then there's actually physical fights, so that's exciting. And I just like that they stand up for their players. Like, they fight for their players. There's loyalty. There's, you know, stuff like that. There's so much to it.
They'll fight the ref for the other players.
Well, there's yelling.
Yeah.
There's loudness. I love it.
And you can be loud and exciting.
And nobody's
like,
going to be like, shh, quiet down.
Like, it's an exciting environment.
Yeah.
So you can be
I'm boisterous.
self.
Yeah, you can.
I mean, when people ask me why I like hockey, I'm just kind of like, have you been to a hockey game? Like, I kind of fit in there.
Yeah, have you met me?
And then when my family started coming...
We have today our wonderful guest, Jessica McMaster, following up after last time's guest, her husband, Scott McMaster. So this should be fun, I think, get to see the other side of the story a little bit. I don't think we have any announcements this week.
No, we don't.
No business to take care of, so we can jump right into it. Jess, I feel like let's see here. I've known you for probably about 15 years. Is that right?
That makes me feel old, but yeah, probably.
Okay. And interacted with you a fair amount because I used to mow your lawn all the time.
I know, you're so good. Mia, you're good too. But
Mia's good too, but... Well, Josh and I did it together, so
yeah.
It was like that we double teamed it.
Yeah, and you guys did a lot of weed eating. Can't beat that.
Yeah. I remember weed eating a lot. You just end up like green from the waist down.
Yes.
Anyways, we always ask the same question first, which you're probably familiar with now. What is your favorite color, and what does that say about you as a person?
Yeah. Well, now following Scott, I feel like I'm gonna copy him. Actually, I thought about this, and you would think I'd be more prepared because when Hazel was little, she'd always be like, what's your favorite animal? What's your favorite color? What's your favorite insect? Like every day. She always wanted to know what your favorite thing was. But I would have to say blue, and not a specific color of blue, but any shade of blue. And because I feel like there's something about this shade, any shade of blue, that's very calming for me. I mean, you just helped us with some work on our house. And
That's
painted.
True. I should have known.
Painted different shades of blue for me. Our bedroom's blue. Some basement rooms are blue. And our couches are different shades of blue. And I don't know. It's just very calming for me.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel like you need that calming effect? Or is it just that you enjoy being in a peaceful space?
I feel like it just brings me a lot of joy, and probably the calming and grounding comes from my mind, and personality is just a busy one. It just is urgent and constantly going. And so if you were to line up like 5 paintings of different colors and there was one that had like blues, grays in it, that would be the one that I'd be the most drawn to, just because I would just think, oh, those are so pretty and soothing. So,
yeah. What is your earliest memory?
Earliest childhood memory, probably split between 2. I have one where I assume preschool, because it was in a church and I was very young, and we were hunting like most likely the gingerbread man through this like dark church. So probably 3 or 4. But that's like the only thing I remember about it. I don't remember anything else. And then a different memory would be when I was 4 or 5, we lived in a trailer in the trailer park, and we were neighbors with our pastor and his wife at our church. And I used to steal her roses off her rose bush. And my mom would make me go over to her house and apologize.
Did you have to give the roses back?
Yes. And so a lot happened in that trailer park. I also got bit by a dog.
Oh, wow.
On my knee there. And so it's a lot of fun. But I just remember being like, oh, I'm so sorry. I took your roses off your rose bush. But they're so pretty.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, what you said about looking for a gingerbread man in a dark church, that sounds like a nightmare.
It does. I mean, it doesn't feel creepy memory, but it was like, you know, like a big Lutheran church that preschool, and you're what, like probably 3, 4, and a bunch of little kids surging through. Like, whose idea is this?
I feel like there's something about church buildings that they're just very scary in the dark.
That's
I
right.
agree.
Like even the church building here, like when you come here at night and there's no one here and the lights
There's
are off,
no lights
and there's
on.
the red exit signs just bathe everything in red.
And these churches are like, I mean, the Lutheran church is a little bit like the Catholic church in my hometown. It's like a huge, tall building.
Yeah.
And
Lots
you know.
of shadows.
Yes.
And,
so.
yeah.
I thought I was the
Creepy
only
place.
one that was scared when I came. When the lights off, I would walk faster.
Yeah, I mean, I can't walk through this place when it's dark without feeling like I'm going to be murdered or attacked.
Yeah, like somebody's waiting
Possessed.
for you.
I know I can't
Like,
be possessed
all the
in a
lights are on.
church, but I just feel like there might be demons. I don't know.
Well, you know, if they're looking for Christians, this is the place to find them.
Yeah,
In
I
the
guess
dark.
that's true.
In the dark.
So, did you grow up going to church then?
So earlier on, I went to church with my grandma. She attended a small church. I grew up in Northwest Iowa in a small town, and I would go with my grandma a lot. I think sometimes my mom would come with us. And then after my grandma passed away, I don't think we went very often after that. Excuse me. And then through like middle school, high school, I kind of floated around of like, I would try and stay at like people's houses so I could go to church with them. But I grew up in a very predominant Irish Catholic town. And so it was like, well, I don't really want to stay at everybody's houses and go to the Catholic church. But there's a small Baptist church that just kind of opened up in town. And then a Lutheran Methodist. A lot of my friends went to the Methodist church. So it's usually where I went on Sunday mornings with friends throughout high school. So
So
kind of
what
floated
town are you
around
from?
Emmitsburg.
Emmitsburg.
Where is that? Is that Iowa?
It's up in Northwest Iowa. It's like kind of up towards like the lakes, like Okoboji, Spirit Lake area. So a few hours from here.
Yeah. And what do you feel like your relationship with God was like during that time where, I guess, what was drawing you to go to church? Middle school, high school.
Yeah, I feel like, well, I wasn't saved, but I feel like there was something that was like softening in my heart of like, well, I wanted to be there, but I probably wasn't sure why. Like I went as a kid with my grandma, and I saw my grandma get baptized when she was elderly, like older. I think she died before she had turned 60, so she died younger. And so there was something though that I probably saw in some of my friends' families and different things that I was like, that's something like I want to be a part of, but wasn't really getting the answers, but didn't really know how to ask or figure it out, kind of thing. If I had like to kind of psychoanalyze it in a sense. So just trying to like spend time there on the weekends and then get up and go to church with them and different things. So
Yeah. So, was it before college or after college that you were saved?
I got saved when I was in college.
Okay.
So let's see, my freshman year of college, I went and sold books right after my freshman year. And when you're out on the book field, it's pretty lonely. Like, I mean, you're out selling books by yourself. Like, I'm knocking on all these doors and it's just me. Sometimes you work with a manager. Most of the time you're by yourself. And so you kind of have a lot of time to think. Like, what are you doing with your life? Like, what's going on? And then I came back from that summer and was just like, kind of had like this, I don't know, come to Jesus moment, literally, of like, I like met all these families, all these different things, and all those moments I went out and bought a Bible and came home and just basically like sat down on my bed and was by myself, just like kind of started crying and was like, this is just not like working for me, and like accepted Jesus there and just started reading my Bible. I would love to say that my life drastically changed that day. But as you guys heard 2 weeks ago in Scott's podcast, we still kind of lived the college life. Unfortunately, it was a slow transition for both of us for different reasons. We did go to church while we were in college. And so it was like we kept showing up and we kept trying, but we were just influenced by the wrong people and couldn't really find people outside of each other to probably pour into us and pull us away from those influences. And so then when we got here to New Life, it clicked at different paces and different times and different reasons for us, but drastically changed for us.
So, like, what really prompted you to go out and buy that Bible? And
I just got home from the summer and was just, like, sitting in my room, and I was just like, I need a Bible. Like, I just need to start reading God's Word. Like, the whole summer just piled on of, like, how lonely I was and saw all these broken families and just realized, like I, like, need Jesus. That's, like, the only answer.
Did you, was there... In that summer, do you remember anyone trying to like share the gospel with you or planting a seed like that?
Not anyone in like particular, like one person, but it's not uncommon. Like the books that we sold, there were a lot of people who had like come from Christian, but they used to sell Bibles. So it was like a Christian-based company. So you had a lot of people around you who, you know, spoke, like who had faith-based principles, but then there were a lot of college kids too who did not.
Yeah.
Like it was definitely a melting pot of people, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then I sold books in California my first summer, so definitely probably not a lot of families that I ran into.
Yeah.
I actually worked in a Mormon town my first summer, so I spoke to a lot of Mormons my first summer, and sold books to a lot of Mormon families, so.
Do you think, like, because you felt lonely and you just felt like, I need a Bible, like, this is what's going to help me, do you think it's because from your childhood, like, that met a need back then, and so you knew you could run back to God when you needed something? Like, from going to church with your grandma and then your friends.
Yeah.
You think that?
Well, I'm an only child raised by a single mom, so I had a pretty lonely childhood.
Yeah.
And so I think, like, all of those like, instances and all of those, sorry, I lost my train of thought. All of those, like, kind of, like, reaching out and doing all of those things were just kind of, like, building up and, like, leading up to, like, this is what I need. Yeah. This is what I want.
Yeah. So you, like, have the social, the community aspect as a kid, because you were going with your grandma probably to be with your grandma and then with your friends, so that you have people with you, like sleeping over at their house and then going to church with them, just so you have community. And then when you get to college or and you're selling books and you need community again, but you don't have it, you remember you associated Bible and God with community. Yes. And that's what you needed.
Like, so, like, and when we do, like, when you sold books, like, you're going to, like, sales school and you're, like, listening to people's testimonies in a sense, too. And these people who are sharing their testimonies on selling books, there are also a lot of people who are sharing their testimonies, are weaving their testimonies of faith into that, too. Like, the more higher up people, not just, like, college kids that are peers.
Yeah.
And so it's a really impactful, life-changing, like no one else really experiences that emotional impact except for the people that you're going through that with, if that makes sense. So it's like one of those things that, like, you kind of find your people too there. So there's like a, I don't know how to explain it. I'm sorry.
Camaraderie?
Yeah, in a sense. So
word?
yeah, so you're like they're mentoring you in that sense as well.
Well,
like
you feel like you're in it together.
You. Yeah, like someone's actually finally like talking to you about things that like maybe all those other times that I was looking for, but no one was seeing that that's what I was looking for. Like I was just a middle school teenage kid not knowing what I was looking for.
Right.
Or not like willing to ask my parents, my kids or my friends' parents, like,
yeah, and finally,
well, what does this really mean here? Like, can you explain the gospel to me? Can you, like, you know, kind of thing.
Finally, someone took the time to explain it to you and meet that need.
Yeah. You mentioned that you were an only child with a single mom.
Yeah.
How do you feel like that was? I mean, obviously as a kid, you don't really know anything different,
right.
but as you look back on that, like, what do you appreciate about that in hindsight, and also what has been difficult about that?
Yeah, that's a really great question. Honestly, as a kid, I feel like my mom did a fantastic job as a single mom raising me, in the sense that I don't feel like I missed out on anything. Now, obviously, I could tell like other families like we were different, obviously. Like we didn't go on fancy vacations or anything like that. But my mom worked really, really hard, and I don't feel like I missed out on a lot of like anything. I really didn't notice anything until maybe like in high school, where there was things that like, you know, you start getting into clothes and different stuff where it was like, oh, I actually can't have all those things. But then I started working, and so it was like, well, then I'll just pay for things if I want things that are wants and not needs. But my mom did a really great job of showing up to like all of my games, working all the jobs to provide for us, and my grandma was around till I was about 10, and so we lived with her for a little bit, so that was really helpful. I had a lot of cousins. I had like 12, 13 cousins, so they were always at my grandma's. So I was an only child, but like I also had a lot of cousins around my age too, to play with and hang out with, and the neighbor kids. What was your second part of your question?
Well, I asked what did you appreciate about it, and what was difficult about it?
So that was what I appreciate about it, is that she just worked really, really hard, and I just felt like, she was just a great role model in that sense. What was really hard about it, I feel like when like Scott and I got married and then we were starting our family, we had to work through a lot of my fears, because I was like, I projected a lot onto him of like, well, you need to be a dad like this, and you need to be a dad like this, because I didn't have a dad in my life, that I felt like I was micromanaging him out of fear and controlling, because I didn't know what it would look like, and I didn't know how he was going to be. And he was just like, I'm fully capable and confident in my dad's skills. And obviously he's proved that like time and time again. But when we were first turning off and I was pregnant, and like even the first year or two, it was like, I don't know about this. Like, I don't know what this is supposed to look like. And I've just been so thankful that God knows what he's doing, because Scott is so gracious of not growing up with a dad in a marriage, to see in my own home growing up, to give me someone who is so gracious as Scott is, has been a huge blessing, and he's just a stellar dad. But I would say that would be probably like the biggest downfall, has been just those first couple years of parenting was a little like, I don't know if you're doing this right.
Right. So do you think like your dad not being there, your mom being a single mom, helped, or do you think it helped or aided your view of God? Because I know a lot of people that have like either absentee fathers or bad dads, then it affects how they see God. Like they put that image on God. Do you think,
you know,
because you had nothing to compare it to, it was fine?
I actually think that's a really great question, because I've had this conversation with Scott quite a bit. At this point in my life, now this can change, so if you ever do a where are they now, you can follow up on a question.
Okay.
At this point in my life, I would say it has not entirely had a huge negative impact on my view of God, in the sense that I don't have a lot of hurts from my dad in a way that other people have that have grown up with a dad. Because my dad hasn't been present to hurt me.
Right.
So I haven't experienced any hurts from things that he said or hasn't said or done or hasn't done. Like when we've done Renew, a lot of my Renew stuff has been a lot of alone. So that could be like affected from him. But not necessarily. So I would say he's been very gracious in that. And I've been very thankful for that. But obviously, as we continue to grow and become more like God and dig deep and experience things, like that the answer could definitely change. But up to this point, there hasn't been a lot of things that have.
Well, and that's definitely God's grace.
Yeah,
like
for sure.
On you, and for you to be able to just have that, a good image of what a father is, and to be able to accept it,
right?
You know, and not compare it to something that's shattered and broken.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, well, I guess when I think of you, Jess, you seem like a fairly resilient person. Would you agree with that statement, or is it just an exterior shell?
No, I would agree with that. I'm pretty resilient and adaptable to things.
Yeah. I mean, like, I've definitely heard of a lot of people, like, who are adopted or something, having a wound from just knowing that, like, even if they've never met their parents, like, just knowing that their parents didn't love them, even if they did love them, but, like, they gave them up or something.
Right.
And even if they have, like, very loving adoptive parents, like, they can still struggle with knowing God's love. But it sounds like, yeah, you just were able to sidestep that by God's grace.
Well, and I think a lot of that comes back to, too, is God's grace and graciousness in giving me Scott, honestly, and just early on, I mean, our marriage hasn't been perfect from day one, but just the way that he has loved me from day one, too, has just been very gracious. And especially with this topic, too, and handling, you know, the dad absence and stuff like that, and how supportive he's been, and just the circumstances and the story of it, too. And everything is also, everybody's situation is very different, but understanding it and all that. So,
well, and it's probably a lot of gratitude on your part for, like, your mom,
right?
Because you could not be acknowledging the things she was doing for you as a child and thinking, oh, I wish it was this way, but you were very grateful for how she was working hard, and even now when you look back, you're very grateful for that. So I think gratitude can definitely help you not look at the things that you didn't have or how you wish it was back then.
Yeah, for sure. So speaking about your personality, I feel like a word that I would use to describe you is boisterous. Do you feel like you were always that way? Like, were you a pretty loud kid, or
do you think you're loud?
Do you think
yeah, you're assuming.
I'm not saying I'm loud. I'm just saying
I'm
like.
told I'm loud.
I
feel like that's subjective.
You're very outgoing and expressive. There we go. That's a good word.
Expressive. I'm not offended. You can say all the adjectives you want to. I've heard them all. Have I always been outgoing? Well, so that kind of plays back. I mean, a little bit of my childhood in, you know, nature versus nurture, God, you know, obviously, how we're born, how he creates us, all of those things. My mom is very quiet. My mom's been coming to New Life. A lot of people have met her. she's a very quiet person, and she always told me that she just did not want me to be like her. She did not want me to be quiet and shy and intimidated. And so from a young age, she was very much like kicking me out the door of like, you will go sell your own Girl Scout cookies. I will not be the person that takes she will not take my Girl Scout cookie form to her office. I will do it. I will have to do my own work. So I did not win all those prizes because my mom would not do it for me. So I worked hard for those. And so I was knocking on doors and calling people when I was young and doing all of those things and getting out of my comfort zone. And she just always put me in those situations. And I feel like as maybe, I don't really remember, but probably like 12 and under, I don't remember being like super like loud and outgoing, but I did get a lot of talks too much on my report card. So
I got a lot of those too.
Great student, talks too much. Separate her from these people. So I did get a lot of those. In high school, I got a lot of teacher writing on the board, and people are talking, and for some reason, my name got in trouble.
Yes, Jess.
Even if it wasn't me.
Yes.
So yes, I think in high school, I was a little bit more probably on the obnoxious side of things. And then, college kind of came into my own and just was like, this is who I am. And I think as the older I've gotten, I'm just a little bit more calmer now. I think I'm getting tired.
When the teacher
swinging back more into an ambivert, depending on who I'm around, how I'm feeling that day.
Did you start talking to that new person?
Probably.
Too? That's what I did. They'd be like, you don't know this
me.
person. Instantly start talking to him.
Well, I mean, in high school, every single class it'd be like alphabetical, so it was like I guess to be the same 3 people. Like,
Yeah.
Come on.
So you gotta speak up so they move you around.
I don't want to sit by these people.
And the getting in trouble when it wasn't you talking that used to make me so mad.
Yeah.
The one time you're not talking, you get in trouble.
I mean, because they know they have you pegged. Like, I walk in, Mr. Minicky doesn't like me. He's gonna yell at me. Like, come on.
Well, in one sense, as a teacher, I feel this way to Juana. Like, if a kid does a bad thing, and I'm not quite able to, confront them about it right then, I'm just looking and waiting for that kid to do
another
Or maybe do it again. Are you guys talking really a bad thing?
No, it is not.
Yeah, it is. I feel like I'm a more relaxed leader at Awana. Maybe the Awana kids who listen to this, I know there's a couple, can tell me otherwise, but sometimes I'm just perfectly fine with kids goofing off, and I feel like if you're in a teaching role with kids, it is really difficult sometimes when you're trying to get through something and you really need them to focus, but then other times it's you could really be missing an opportunity to bond with these kids.
Yeah.
If you don't let them cut loose a little bit.
A little bit, yeah. Loosen the reins a little bit.
I like making poop jokes with them. That always helps.
Loosens the crowd up. It's a true story. Yeah, I think I just got bored in school. So it's just let's just make some friends.
Well, and you were at home by yourself, so
I needed some socializing.
Yeah, you come to school. It's time to chat.
I mean, you're in school for 8 hours.
Right. Did you do any sports or clubs in high school? In college?
Yeah, let's see. In high school, I started off I was student council and basketball and volleyball and softball. But when you grow up in a small town, there's a lot of family names kind of thing, like politics and stuff that if you have older siblings that were really good at sports, you kind of get to play sports because your siblings were good, so it must mean you're good.
Yeah.
And so I kind of weaned out of some sports that I was like, I don't really love these sports enough to not play very much because all the names and stuff like that. And so by my senior year, I was just in show choir and volleyball, I think, and student council. And then I was some teacher assistants for a teacher I really liked. She was like a friend kind of thing. And so I did that, and those were fun. And then college, I didn't do any clubs, I don't think. I did not.
So I wanted to ask you about one thing you mentioned with your boisterous nature, and you said that your mom kind of like pushed you in that direction. How do you feel like being a mom? Did you do the same thing with your kids, or was it another opposite reaction? Where like, don't be like me, kids.
You're really quiet.
Don't be loud like me. I actually feel like Scott takes on that role. I feel like I can in some situations. But Scott is more of the, no, get out of your comfort zone, call these people for fundraising, go talk to these people, do these things, where I'm like, but that might hurt their feelings. I'm their mom, and I want to protect them from pain, and this world's so evil and mean to them, and why do we want to hurt their feelings? But like logically, I understand what's good for them. So if Scott wasn't doing that, I would be doing it to some degree, but probably not pushing it as much and as hard as him. And so again, I'm just so thankful there's two of us, because Lord knows I need him. I'd probably be sheltering them a little bit too much. But he's more like encouraging them to do that, and they handle it really well. I mean, they're champs. They drag their feet a little bit, but
You girls know how to get to business.
yeah.
So I am very excited to ask, was it Scott's Halo skills that made you fall in love with him?
El Bandito, it was not his Halo skill.
I really thought it might be.
It was not.
Like, wow, this guy is so good at this game.
I can't believe it. No, I was just aware of who he was, because the guys in my dorm that played him for so long. Actually, I really admired Scott's integrity and honesty, because when we sold books and I managed him the first year, so it was my second year and his first year, I was a manager.
So you were his boss.
I was his boss in a sense. We would have like little chats. We actually called them, I think we called them PCs, like private chats or personal conferences or something.
That's why Renew can't be called PC, because PC means too many things. Politically correct, Pokemon Center.
Pokemon Center.
That makes sense. He would show up on Sundays, and we'd be doing something fun on Sundays because our only day off of selling books, and our whole org would get together, and I would meet with him for like 10, 20 minutes or whatever. Or he'd talk to me on the phone during the week to give me his stats and whatnot. And he'd be like, oh, I feel so bad. I'm like, well, why do you feel bad? He's like, I took a 5-minute nap today. I was so tired. And I was like, okay, do you feel better now that you got that off your chest? He's like, I do. And I was like, okay, that's great, because like you weren't supposed to do stuff like that. Like you stay on schedule. And that was like a huge no. Like that would be like getting off schedule or something. Or he'd be like, I stopped at a gas station and got a treat. And I was like, okay, thank you for telling me. I really appreciate that. But like that's like how like honest he was, and like showed his integrity of like, I need to get this off my chest. Like we're not supposed to do these things. This is a big deal to me. And like I just really admired that, because there were so many other people doing way worse things and they were lying about it. And here he was like, oh, I need to tell you this. And then he just went about it and crushed it. So, but we were friends, but I wasn't in love with him yet then. But
Yeah.
I was going to say, and then you were in love with him.
so,
So what, I mean, we got a little bit of Scott's side of the story of kind of you guys' early relationship. But when did you know, or at least feel like, like, this is the guy that I'm gonna marry?
This is the guy I'm gonna marry. Let's see. We were friends, and then we started dating. I probably knew within a couple months, I think. Because we waited. Well, I think now that's like our only thing that we would really change is we would go back and get married like way sooner than what we did. And so I think, yeah. We talk about that often of like, well, when did you know that you like loved me? And when did you know that like this was it? And my answer is always like, I just never didn't know. Like, I just felt like I was waiting for him to say I love you first because I didn't want to say it first. And I think he said it after a month. But we were just friends for so long before that, like best friends, good friends, that everything just felt so natural that I just, once we started dating and it just all fell into place, I just didn't ever see us like not. So
Yeah.
it's kind of anticlimactic and boring. But
No, I think it's great. I think sometimes people can put way too much pressure on the whole thing. Like myself, very much included in that. Like it has to be this whole mountaintop romantic experience, and
but we were like in college, so like we were juniors, and so like in our mind then it was like, oh, we need to finish college and get married. And maybe that's what our parents expected of us. I don't know if that was just a pressure we put on ourselves, but we're like the first to get married out of all of our friends. Like none of our friends were even really dating people and that we were around at that time. And so like we kind of just did things that like now going back, it was like we should have just gotten married. Like why did we, we just put these expectations that I don't know where it was coming from or why we felt that way kind of thing, but That's what it is.
Good problem to have. I wish I would have been with you sooner. I feel that way. I always feel like I would have gotten married quicker.
So it all worked out.
How long did you guys? It wasn't that long.
No, it was like 3 months or something. It was not long at all.
That's how long you were engaged or dating?
No, dating and married. From dating to married, it was like less than a year.
Yeah. So.
And it was only because of COVID.
Yeah.
And your parents kept saying, tell us before you get married, like the weekend before that you guys get married.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's good to do it quick, I guess.
If you know, you know.
So true.
So, I had something and I just lost it. You got something, Jerra?
I do, but it's random. I was just gonna ask you what kind of music you like. I've never asked you that before.
Oh, yeah. This isn't gonna be a surprise. I like all kinds of music. I'm like all over the place. With the exception of I don't like heavy metal, and I probably don't really like classical and jazz, but like if you were playing it in your house, I wouldn't be like, turn this off. I would probably chill.
Like you listen to some country and
old school country. I don't like today's country.
Me neither.
I like 90s country, 80s country.
Early 2000s.
Early 2000s is good. We're going to a Brooks and Dunn concert for my birthday next year, so I'm excited about that. We predominantly listen to worship music because my children don't really listen to a lot of secular music because lyrics nowadays are just hard. But I like a lot of music, really. I mean, I listen to whatever. I mean,
do you like regularly listen to music, like every day? Like feel a desire to listen to music?
It kind of depends on my mood. I'm a mood listener with music.
Yeah.
I'm really I have like a different playlist for different things.
Yeah. So like Elena was just asking me about like, what kind of music do you like, Jerra? And I gave her the same answer. I feel like me and Jess are very similar, but very different in that she's like more mature and stuff. But like, we're very similar in like the talking in class and a lot of the things she's said recently, I definitely feel.
Yeah. Like I have a playlist, like if we're going on vacation, I'll make a vacation playlist. And then I have like some albums I'll just put on, like the Beatles if my kids aren't home.
Yeah.
Because they hate the Beatles. I don't know what's wrong with them. What's wrong with you guys? And then sometimes I used to listen to Pandora, so it would just play like music that sounds like other music.
Yeah.
But I don't have an ad-free Pandora, so I stopped. But I don't know. I listen to some sappy songs sometimes when I'm feeling sappy.
Yeah, I'm never like I don't listen to music daily, and I have to have a craving for music to like listen to, like put on a song and listen to it.
So do you feel like, both of you guys, do you feel like you feel a certain way and then you want to like match that with the music, like amplify that, or I don't know what the right word is.
Or you find songs to make you feel a certain way.
Or do you find songs to make yourself feel a certain way?
I mostly like to have the feeling and then find the song to match it.
Would you agree with that, Jess? Or?
Usually, yeah. With the exception of worship. Like, if I'm feeling kind of down, I'll listen to worship music to kind of maybe bring us out of a funk. Or if the house just needs, like, a good pick-me-up. Like,
yeah, I
this
agree.
is not vibing well here. We need some,
we need some Holy Spirit.
See, that's
Holy
when,
Spirit.
that's when other people start listening to death metal. So.
But, like, if it's, like, maybe we're a little delirious, we'll play some dance music and have dance parties. We have, like, when we go to hockey games, we have a hockey playlist specifically that we have to play on our way to hockey games. We have a pool playlist when we hang out at the pool. We have very specific.
Yeah, are you a creature of
vibes.
habits? Like, do you like mostly the same things? Like, this is the thing we do at this time. And I don't know, routine and habits?
Sometimes. Depends.
I feel like I am. Like, if we do a certain thing multiple times in this circumstance, then this is the thing we do now. And I'm never going to, like, not
change it.
Yeah. And unfortunately, Gwen is that way. I recently got, like, from Joelle a bunch of new bedtime books and was reading them to her, and she, like, her eyes were wide. Like, what is going on? And then she starts to look for her old books, because this is not bedtime yet, and she would not go to sleep because we didn't read bedtime books, because these are new books. It's very bizarre.
She's like, this is not right.
Yeah, what are you doing?
You changed my routine. Well, that makes sense because, like, she knows her routine.
Yeah, she knows
and,
the
like,
books.
You switched it.
Yeah, and whenever Josh reads the book, he reads them different with different voices. And so whenever he puts her down, she cries. Whereas when I do it, she just goes to sleep. It's really weird.
Throwing her off.
Yeah. Anyways.
That's all great. So, Jess, after you bought the Bible and cried and
Had my moment.
had your moment, how do you feel like your relationship with God progressed from that point in college? And what year in college was that?
That was my sophomore year. So my sophomore year, it was very slow moving. So I would say my personal relationship with God was very much like I spent time in God's Word, and then I did not seek out if there were any like clubs at UNI, and if there were, it was not like predominantly advertised, like in your face, because I was pretty active like on campus as far as like going to classes in the student center that I would have like seen something or noticed something kind of thing. Later that year was the year that we started going to church, which Scott got it right, the name of the church. It was a pretty big mega church there. It was a good church. I wouldn't say that I wouldn't say that I feel like my faith grew a ton because of it, but it definitely like helped. It wasn't like New Life, like big steps and bounds, leaps and bounds kind of thing, but it was.
Well, you were part of the body. And
yes, we were doing something, and it was like one of those things where it was like slow conviction of like, ooh, I went out on Friday night, and I'm at church on Sunday. I don't really feel good about going out on Friday night kind of thing, you know? But like it didn't stop me from going. Where like some people just don't want to go because they feel so much shame and they feel bad. Like I still wanted to go. So like that was a good move in the right direction. And I think it was good accountability for like the friends and the people that I was bringing with me, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because if it's just you going, it's one thing. But like when you start like, hey, we should go, and you have more people, is always good. And that's just kind of where we stayed for a couple of years. And as I got older and went through college, my social life changed. I didn't have the desire to do the college life as much as my peers. And by the time my junior year, I lived off campus and actually moved to Waterloo and did not really want to be near the college. Not that Waterloo is a great place to live. But it was a safe area. But I didn't live near school, and that's when Scott and I started dating. So like our social life changed very much because then we had each other to kind of hang out with and not necessarily do as much as the college life. And then my senior year, I lived with just another gal. And I didn't have the whole FOMO thing of like, I have to be out and be socializing. I'm only child. I'm very much okay being home alone and not engaging. And so we stayed at that church throughout all of college. And then we'd go back home and go to his parents' church quite a bit when we were back in Carlisle. They went to a small Christian church. But that was about it. Like we didn't join. I was trying to think once I listened to his, and I don't think we ever joined any like college groups there or anything, because I think that was kind of still like a scary commitment of like, you know, Scott's comment of like having one foot kind of out the door and one like, ooh, that's a bigger step of like, I'm not really sure how I feel about that. And when you don't really have a body that you really know really well to guide you through that, that's like even scarier, I feel like. Where like once you have people you actually know and trust, like, okay, well, when I screw up, you're going to be here to like catch me and walk me through this. Like, or be there for me and see me through that kind of thing. So we did that, and then we got married and moved to Des Moines and started attending his parents' church, which was like a little old church that was kind of dying. Until we lived here.
So, you brought up something that's kind of interesting to me there.
Yeah.
Felt like you didn't want to make a commitment to, you know, a group of people or the body of Christ, or just to like put yourself out there in that way. At New Life, one of our core purposes is a place to belong.
Yeah.
What do you feel like? I mean, you were talking about it a little bit there, I think, but what do you feel like helped you to overcome that feeling of like, I don't want to commit, I don't want to belong, and really?
Well, I think when you're in college, there's a couple things. One, Cedar Falls was not ever going to be our forever landing point. Like, we weren't ever, well, God willing, we weren't ever planning on staying in Cedar Falls. So it was kind of possibly an excuse, but also, well, why would we plug in and be here if we're not staying?
Yeah.
I also think that there were some things that we liked the church, but also theology wise, I believe we found out at one point there was, you know, a female pastor at the church. There were just some things that like, hey, this might not be a forever church that we want to stay at for super long. So, you know, do we really want to plug in and invest here? Or is this just kind of a stepping stone that's
while we're on our way to
it's doing something for us, but it's not necessarily, you know, we're not going to be here forever kind of thing. By the time we got to Cedar Rapids, like we had been married 6-7 months, and it was like we're looking for something. Like we're married, like we've lived this life, like we don't want to be here anymore, like we're done, like we need something. Like we were at different places in our journey, like together but also separately, if that makes sense. But also like I think we were both just ready to just be plugged in and have, like, we didn't know anybody here. So when Scott said like we came in, all these people invited us and did all these things, knowing both of us, Scott was probably way more excited about that than me because he just makes friends a lot easier than I do and trusts so much easier than me, where I'm kind of like, well, do they want to name our firstborn? Like, what are you talking about? Like, but I was also very excited too, because you just do. You want to feel at home. Like, I knew we weren't leaving Cedar Rapids. Like, my husband was going to have a territory here. Like, this was our forever home. Like, we're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And so it was like, yeah, let's, plant roots and do this. And so it was a good feeling.
Yeah, I think I feel like that's something that's really important to keep in mind when, like, meeting new people at church, is just like sometimes people aren't in the time of life where they're ready to, like, stay.
Right.
And it's like, sometimes it can, at least for myself, like, I feel like I can make a really good friend and then they make other plans and move away or something. And for, like, myself, I don't think I'll really ever move from Cedar Rapids because I got all my family here. And it's like, I could move somewhere else for some exciting opportunity, but that's never going to make me as happy as my friends and family do. But I think it's good to, like, have that perspective with other people, is like, this is a really great church, but that doesn't mean that this person is ready to really belong somewhere.
Right.
Well, I feel like when you really join a church and you get plugged in, it's like being married to them. I feel married to New Life. I don't feel like I can leave. Like, even if I really wanted to.
Cult alert.
Because all of my people are here, my friends. Like, I feel like I don't really have more life, like much more life outside of New Life. Like, New Life is so embedded in my everyday experience. Most of my friends, my family, they're all here. I just feel like it's so interwoven that's kind of a part of me now. And so when new people come, or I have friends that come here and it feels like they're rejecting the church, but maybe they're just in that transitional period that you were in, it feels like a rejection of me because this is my church.
Right.
You can take it a little bit offensive, but I think it is a good thought to think like people are on their way somewhere and maybe this is not their stopping point, and that's okay.
Yeah. I think too is sometimes we were at a place where we were ready to be loved on. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes that is also hard for people, is that I think we have been so used to to experience this love is like, that we forget other people are not, that's foreign to them.
Yeah.
And it can be a little overwhelming and intimidating.
And maybe you don't even trust it because like, I've never been loved like this before.
Right. Or that love comes with attached or expectations in an unhealthy way. And I think that we, sometimes can be hurt by that, but it's not really about us too.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I was joking about that of like, well, do they want our firstborn? But that was probably honestly like one of my thoughts of like, well, what do they want from us? Like, and that's not even a part of my past of like someone wants something from me, but I had never been like, so many people like want to like genuinely spend time with us that don't know us. Like, that was so foreign to me because I was like, okay, we could try this.
Yeah.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. This has a little bit to do with what we're talking about, people passing through the church and moving on. And I know you've had a lot of friends that have passed through the church and moved on. How did you deal with that? Or how are you dealing with that? Like,
maybe I haven't dealt with it.
Well, this is the place to do it, Jess.
This is where you say, I don't want to answer the question.
Next question. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I mean, when we, last 2 weeks ago, Scott mentioned when we first came, Pastor Kurt had started a life group that was like all newlyweds or soon to be newlyweds. And I don't think any of those couples are in the church anymore. There was like 8 or 9 couples. And then we had another life group that we were part of that we loved dearly that was probably like 6 or 7 couples. And I don't think any of those families are in the church. And I mean, that was like 17, 16 years ago. So it's, a long time.
Yeah.
And things happen, jobs, people move away. So yeah, It was hard, and unfortunately, there were a few years where it was like waves, and so a lot of some of those families had kids our kids' age, and I think that was hard for our kids because our kids were older. A couple of those years until like they were like there was like a year where I felt like every couple months I was like letting my girls know like, hey, you know, like so and so they're moving away, or the so and so, you know, are gonna go to another church, and it's not like, oh, we can't be friends with them, but like when your lives are busy and you're, you know, my husband's running a company and traveling and we're homeschooling and doing activities, and then we have ministries here, like it's really hard to try and fit in when they're also trying to build into a new church and their new activities. You know, now we're circling back now that our kids are older and doing similar activities at the homeschool building and stuff, like we're circling back to some of those friendships, but at the time it was like, you know, saying goodbye to friends over and over again. It was really, really hard. So there were a couple of hard years, but just recognizing kind of earlier what you had said, like it's just not about us, and just doing what's best for their family, and just separating those emotions and just praying for them and that they find a good fit for their family.
Mm-hmm.
And what's working for them and what they're going through.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I wanted to get to a little bit more about you and Scott's relationship. How much, I mean, we talked kind of with him that a lot of his success is due to you helping him just manage his life. Would you say that's a pretty accurate estimation
her own
of the
horn
situation?
if she did.
I feel like this is where I should be humble.
No, I'm asking you to say, no, you guys didn't, you underestimated. Scott would be in the dumpster without me.
No. Scott is amazing at what he does. He runs a very, very successful business. And so my job and my role, and I love doing it, is to make the rest of his life very easy. So he can do a great job at taking care of us. And when he comes home, he can hang out with us. When the girls were little, it was just like, just hang out with the girls because I've been with them all day. And now it's just hang out with us as a family. And I try and take care of everything else just to make his life a little bit easier.
Yeah.
So.
And it seemed like in recent years that's changed a little bit as you've gotten more involved in some business yourself with like real estate.
Yeah.
Is that just because your kids have gotten older and there's less micromanagement?
They've taken on a lot more responsibility themselves. Like they help out a lot more around the house. We do have some of the short-term rentals that we do, and so I manage those as well. So I still do a lot for Scott. Scott's kind of shifted into doing a little bit more stuff, but we're a big team. The girls have a lot of responsibilities around the house that if they're gone at their grandparents or they're sick, it's very noticeable at our house that someone is absent and not doing something. And as they've gotten older too and don't need me as much, Scott is also like, I'm not doing as much for him. Like his work load has shifted. Like he's not out in the field as much. He's home a lot more, working from home. And home more in the evenings, and so he's also doing a lot more that I used to do for him. And so it's been kind of a weird couple years, like as the girls have gotten older, but now Mia's gone more because she can drive. So I feel like the next few years will just be a constant like shifting and puzzling and like roles and responsibilities and everything. So
yeah. So you seem like you're a fairly motivated, go-getter kind of person. Did you ever feel a tension there of like being a stay-at-home mom, of like, oh, I could be doing this business thing too, like I could be good at this too? I feel like in our culture there's kind of this, I mean, like the feminist idea of like women can be just as good in business, which is true. but a lot of times you have to ask the question, will a given woman be as happy being in business as opposed to raising a family? It seems like what you said is like, I was perfectly happy being a stay-at-home mom, when I think you definitely have the skill set that you could have made just as successful of a business as Scott.
Well, it's very kind of you. I think that, well, there were a few years that I did do LuLaRoe. So I did have a business for a couple of years, maybe not even quite 2 years. And Scott said yes to that because he loves me very much. But it was a lot. And it did not last very long because it was a lot. And I would say I really do love staying home. When we were dating and we were talking about, like, what would we do? Like, I just always assumed I'd go into sales of some sort because I sold books and my degree was not great. And I probably shouldn't have gone to a 4-year college, but that's what everybody did. And so that's what I did. And so at that point it was like, oh, I'll just go into sales because I had books and I'm a great communicator and I work hard. And so one night we were talking and he was like, well, my mom stayed home. What would you think about staying home? And I was like, sure. Like, I'd stay home with our kids. I never really thought about it because I, grew up with a single mom. And so I worked while it was just us. And then after we had Mia, I worked for a little bit until we could secure a house loan. And then I'd quit and stayed home. And I really liked staying home. And I think because my personality is one of, I like autonomy and freedom. And it gave me a lot of freedom to do within range of what I wanted. Now, obviously, with kids, you don't actually have that much freedom. So joke's on me. But I did have some freedom to do what I want with schedule-wise. And I think that I'd be lying if I said every day and every year of having kids that there weren't times that I thought, oh, I could be doing something or wish I could, but there isn't really, I think it's a total God thing because there isn't really anything else I'd want to do. I really, really enjoy being home with my kids. I enjoy like supporting Scott and his business. I enjoy what we've done. I enjoy that I get to homeschool my kids. I don't enjoy the actual homeschooling part because teaching isn't really a gift of mine, but I enjoy the freedom that we have to homeschool our kids and why we homeschool our kids. And I really enjoy spending time with my kids. Not every day is sunshine and rainbows and amazing, but I just feel like, there have been times where I've been like, oh, there are things I wish I could do, and I feel like I have missed out, or like ministries that I wish I could partake in, but I have to prioritize my family, or more, not necessarily my family, but like Scott's job has interfered with that maybe, but it's been fleeting, and that was my flesh and not the spirit.
You've told me you have like a Google Docs of your business ideas. And
my business ideas
you
that
write
maybe
them
I'll get
down.
to someday.
Yeah.
But then I'm like, oh,
and you're happy enough to just...
When my kids are grown, I'll just sleep.
Well, don't let them go to waste. Just send them to people,
Yeah.
We'll put a link to the Google Doc in the show notes.
Ideas.
Great ideas. I told you one when I walked in today.
Yeah.
Like, I wonder how much that would be. Oh, yeah. I mean, our rates never stop. Scott and I are both very entrepreneurial. So there are times where I'm like, oh, I mean, I tell Jerra that all the time of like, I'd really love to do this, but I got to prioritize my family.
Yeah.
And it's not like a resentment. It's just more of like a, man, in another life I would do that kind of thing. Or, maybe when my kids are grown, but then I'll be a grandparent, so maybe not.
Well, it's like fun to entertain the ideas, but the thing you really want and the thing you really love. Like this
is our priority, and so I'm just not able to do that.
But it's fun to think about like this other thing.
So,
in your role of like supporting Scott, I know it was really like it was a lot in the early days when he was traveling a lot and getting the business like off the ground and going. And I know in that time you had your babies and you had C-sections and you were like at home. So like how was that time?
It was really rough. I may have blacked out some of those years. No.
Yeah, you remember it.
Again, I don't want to answer that question.
I pass. I think that's where earlier when Joe was like, you seem like you're resilient. I think that's where like maybe my resilience just played in. Like I just, it's one of those things where I just didn't know any better. There was just no other option. Like you just keep going and you just
like this needs to be done, so I'm just gonna.
My husband's working. There's just no other option. There were options. I could have, probably called Brenda or some babysitters, but at the time, it just didn't probably like come about in my head like that was an option because I was just in the thick of it.
Yeah.
And I have this specific memory after having Hazel, and I had postpartum after Hazel. And so Scott was working, and she was only a couple months old, but I remember Jessica and Joelle just showing up and they're like, can we just take Mia to the mall? And I was like, they'd never babysat for me before or anything. I mean, I knew who they were, but like we weren't super like close or anything. And I was like, sure. And I was like, did Brenda send them here?
Yeah, Brenda hit squad.
Yeah, and I was like, I'm so happy she did, if she did, like, and then after that, they like started babysitting for us and stuff like that. But it's just like one of those things of like, oh, sometimes you just get in this tunnel vision of survival mode that you just don't think about asking for help. But if someone was like, if Scott would have called and been like, Jess, you're struggling, why don't you ask for help? Like, call these people, I'd be like, oh,
yeah,
I should, but like he probably was like busy working and wasn't aware like that moment like was hard or something.
Yeah. Were there Barnabas groups like back then? Were people doing that?
I'm sure there were. I think I was maybe in one with like one other person. But I wasn't in one that was like a serious, like what I've been doing for like the last 10 years probably. Yeah,
long time. Well, I know that you guys had gone through that, like you had the C-sections, they were really difficult, and when you talk about it, I just like can't even, like I just feel like I'd roll over and like die, like I don't even know what. Please come and please take my children. I can't do it. Yeah. So like even hearing that you just were like, okay, this is a thing that needs to be done, so I'm going to do it, is just super amazing to me.
Yeah, just do it. There's no other option. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know.
So specifically about asking for help, because I feel like that's something that, talking with Elena, at least my understanding of the situation is that's something that a lot of moms struggle with, is like there's all these things and it's overwhelming and I need my husband to help me. And like I've talked with Elena of like, well, have you thought about asking other people for help? And it's like, I know sometimes it's like, well, other people have their things they need to deal with, but at least myself, like I always enjoy helping other people with things. And I feel like I've heard like a saying, or would this be a sane advice? I don't know. Something along the lines of like, when you move into a new neighborhood, the first thing you should do is ask your neighbors for help rather than like giving them cookies or something. Because asking them for help is actually like the first building block in society, is you have to be willing to receive from other people and like show your need.
Right.
And I guess my question is, what do you feel like has helped you ask for help? Or be able to ask for help, and how has that gone for you? And I guess really like, what is your encouragement to moms who are feeling overwhelmed?
That's a great question. I feel like, so there's a few different things of really getting down to like why you're not asking for help, because sometimes it's just pride. I mean, there's a lot of insecurities and pride at play when moms aren't asking for help, because that's insinuating that you're not doing a good job. And there's like, moms are really, really hard on themselves. Like basically, you know, at the end of the day, a lot of moms will just kind of look back and they're not seeing all the things that they did right. They're seeing every single thing they did wrong all day. Like, oh, I didn't get laundry done. I didn't get the house picked up. I didn't spend enough time with my kids. I didn't do this for my husband. I didn't spend enough time with that kid. Like, they're just seeing, like, a lot of their failures. And I think the majority of moms can relate to that. And if they're saying they don't, then they're probably in denial. You know? And so not asking for help is usually just because, like, if I'm saying I need help, then that means, like, I can't do this. And then that's telling someone close to me, like, I can't do this. And so I think, you know, pride is sin, right? Like, that's not being humble. And I think it's okay. Like, every single mom has asked for help, you know, at one point or another. And I think recognizing that you're not a burden to someone, and that there's a couple gals that I have a lot of conversations with of releasing that if someone says yes, and then that's on them if they actually don't feel good about that yes. If they feel obligated, like their yes is yes and their no is no, if that makes sense. It's their freedom to say yes and no. And so you have to trust that if Jerra's like, hey, I want to watch your kid, that she really actually means that. And not feel like I'm burdening Jerra for this. Like, Jerra's an adult. She said yes.
Are you?
I am.
Okay.
And if she changes her mind, then she can say, like, hey, actually, I have a lot on my plate. I can't do this kind of thing. I think are some of the things. I think also Scott has he says this a lot. You've probably heard him say this, but he has a similar outlook to you do. Is you kind of briefly mentioned it, but when people want to serve you, like, they're getting rewards in heaven, and you're taking that away from them when you don't allow them to serve you. So if Jerra is like, hey, I would really love to watch Arthur for you, can I do that? That's like, she gets rewards in heaven for doing that. And when you're like, no, we're good, like, you're denying her those eternal rewards. And so that's kind of Scott's perspective, because it used to be hard for him to accept help, and he's kind of retrained his thinking. And so that's something I've, like, often reminded myself when it's been a little bit harder to ask and accept help. I think sometimes for moms too, it's a little overwhelming logistically just to figure out, what do I need help with? Like, how can you actually help me? And so when we're not feeling overwhelmed, you can sometimes make maybe like an actual list on your phone or somewhere on your fridge or something of how is some way that someone could help you. So when you are feeling overwhelmed and someone reaches out and is like, how can I serve you? How can I help you? How can I love you today? You can, you know, like, go through that. Like, I know Ash, and there's another gal, like, when we've been sick or I've been really overwhelmed, she doesn't even ask, how can I help you or serve you? She'll just be like, hey, I'm making twice as much for dinner. Can I drop it off? And it's like, I don't have to think, how can you serve me and love me? I can just say, yeah, actually, that'd be great. I would love for you to feed my family tonight. And that's a great way to just love someone and accept it. And it doesn't, like, take a legit, like, brain power from me to figure out.
Mom brain is a real thing.
You know, because sometimes it's not pride. It's not like, I don't want you to serve me. It's just like, I'm like, if you asked me today, like, Jess, how can I love you? You feel overwhelmed. I'd be like, Jerra, I have no idea right now. I'm feeling a little logistically tired. Let me get back to you and really think about it, maybe. Like, I don't know how you could love me right now, kind of thing. And that is a real thing when you are feeling a little stuck and overwhelmed. But
well, I know before I had kids, whenever I'd show up to my sister-in-law's or somebody's house and, you know, hang out with their kids or take them, like, it's brought one of my sister-in-laws to tears because I said, hey, can I pick up your kids and take them to the park? She just starts crying. Because it's like, I didn't say, hey, how can I? It wasn't vague. It was a specific thing I wanted to do, and she was really needing my help, apparently.
Yeah. And especially when it's loving your kids, because when someone else is loving and spending time with your kids, I mean, there's really no greater thing than that. I mean, I do like when other people make me dinner, but it's so wonderful when someone else loves on your kids. One, it just because you get to see that relationship and dynamic in the body of Christ loving your kids, and then two, it gives the mom a break from her kids, you know.
And you know they're getting quality relationships still.
Right.
That's how I feel.
Yeah. Yeah, you made a kind of a point about like making a list of things that people could help you with, because there are definitely like things that people can't help you with.
Right.
Like we have a huge pile of things in our storage room that need to be organized, and it's like if we let someone else do that, then we're never going to find any of this stuff.
Yeah.
Right. Like, you can't really come over and clean my bedroom.
Yeah. You could. It'd be awkward.
But yeah, having an idea of like, these are the things that I could ask for help with. I feel like that is a pretty good practical step.
Right.
You're like, when you're not feeling overwhelmed, just make kind of a list of things like people could clean the floor, people could do the dishes, people could maybe not do the laundry, depending on how you feel about underwear and stuff. But
well, it depends too. I mean, if it's her parents or like a good friend or someone.
Yeah. I was just thinking to add to your thing of why moms wouldn't ask for help. I was thinking it's like value based. Like, maybe you feel like I'm not worth the help. There are other people out there that
who needs more.
Yeah, they need more help, or they have things that are bigger than what I've got going on.
Or another one would be like, oh, if Jerra helps me, is she going to expect me to owe her a favor? Because there are some people who do that of like, oh, now you're going to owe me a favor.
No, I feel like I need to watch your kids.
And like, I don't have that time or space, or like, I don't want to watch that person's kids because that's not really my gifting or, you know, kind of thing. And that can be kind of daunting too. And so, I mean, people could be mindful of that, of like, hey, you don't owe me anything. Like, I just want to do this for you. Like,
but the love of Jesus Christ is free.
Yeah.
And if a Christian is loving you, you should assume it's free.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think it was part of today's reading or earlier this week?
That.
Well, I just jumped to the current day whenever I open my Bible up. I don't necessarily make it every day, but in the chronological Bible reading, anyways, one of the stories was Jesus was having dinner at someone's place, and he said something along the lines of like, when you invite people over to dinner, don't invite your friends. Invite like beggars, and I forget his list of things, like lepers or something. And he said basically it's because they cannot repay you. Like, help people who cannot repay you, because then your only reward will be a reward in heaven. Yeah, because you're getting no reward on earth. And it's like, yeah, that's definitely the outlook that we should have when we're trying to help other people. Is like, I'm offering my help to you, and I don't even like, it would be a negative thing to me if you tried to repay me in some way.
Yes. Yeah. That's exactly true. So what's going on in your life now, Jess? What are you passionate about?
What am I laundry. 2 solid weeks of laundry.
Wow.
That's it. No. What am I passionate about, Jerra? Honestly, I live a pretty boring life. We're pretty passionate about all things family. We're on the back nine of our girls. They're 13 and 15, and I feel like I'm grasping at them to not grow and get older. Because really, we have less than 3 years of possibly Mia being at home. And
don't say that.
I know. I don't know how we got here.
Yeah.
And she has an intermediate license, so she's been driving to activities and work, and it's just getting a taste of she's just not home a lot and not in the car with me much. And so next year she'll be 16, and she has a social life. And so we are just trying to spend and prioritize our family time and we've always made decisions based on like, how does this affect our family? How does this benefit our family? But now it's very much more so that. And I'm not gonna cry. So we'll move on.
That was not even a hard question.
But besides that, we are just just planning like what looks next for business ventures, traveling, what life looks like, and we don't really have a lot of answers. So it's kind of fun, kind of just out there. What are we doing?
That's crazy.
We turned 40 this spring.
Oh,
so
wow.
just
Getting
a whole
old.
new decade.
I think Scott mentioned in the podcast last time that you were the driving force of getting them all to love hockey. Is that correct?
Yes.
So
I was.
why hockey?
Why not?
Why? I just mean, I agree with you. I think hockey's great. Where did that start for you?
You know, let's see. Well, I've been to some Rough Rider games like in the last like 5-7 years, like off and on, birthday go, whatever. And then I don't know, like 4 or 5 years ago, I was just watching like some random thing on TV, like an All-Stars game, and they were doing like fancy tricks and stuff. And I was like started doing some research and watching some games, and then we started going to more Rough Riders games, and our girls were a little bit older, so I felt comfortable taking them. And I really love the sport for, well, one, it's cold, so I don't sweat at the arena. That is a huge pro. But I like, it's a fast-paced game that they fight, like they keep playing until the very last second. So there's some sports where they don't.
Yeah.
Like football, they run down the clock.
Yeah.
Basketball, they run down the clock.
It's kind of
Or they don't try,
anticlimactic.
or, and so then, like, you're just kind of like, well, they're, like, getting blown out, which is fine. Like, those are still exciting sports. I do watch all sports here and there. But, like, hockey, like, they can score 2 goals in, like, 8 seconds apart, and then you have a whole different game. And it's like, what is happening here? You're never really out until even the last, like, 30 seconds. They're still fighting for the game. Like, they're not giving up, and they're still playing. Then there's actually physical fights, so that's exciting.
Yeah.
And I just like that they stand up for their players. Like, they fight for their players. There's loyalty. There's, stuff like that. And there's so much to
They'll
it.
fight the ref for
Yeah.
the other players.
Well, there's yelling.
Yeah.
There's loudness. I love it.
And
I
you can
love,
be loud
you
and
can-
exciting.
and nobody's
like,
going to be like, shh, quiet
yeah,
down.
like it's an exciting environment.
Yeah.
So you can be
I'm
your
boisterous.
self.
Yeah, you can.
I mean, when people ask me why I like hockey, I'm just kind of like, have you been to a
Have you-
hockey game? Like, I kind of fit in there.
Yeah, have you
Like-
been me?
And then when my family started coming, it was like just something that like no one complained about being at a hockey game, and we all liked it, and so it just kind of worked.
When you guys have like put your love of hockey in other people, like we love hockey.
Yeah, I
Well,
think
I don't know if Josh loves hockey. I love hockey,
But he
and
does.
Gwen likes hockey. I think at least.
So it's fun. It's an enjoyable sport. Yeah. There's actually 16 hockey games on tonight.
Oh.
My team is playing right now.
Well, who's your team?
I like the New Jersey Devils.
Okay. For a reason?
Well, it's kind of a silly reason, and now I'm stuck with them. Scott told me once you pick a team, you have to stay with them.
Not because they're the Devils, is it?
No, I know. The girls are like, Mom, why did you pick this horrible name? No, that All-Star game I was watching, there was like a couple like rookies on it, and I was like, wow, I think they're going to be really good. And they're like on the Devils. I was like, I'm going to watch this. And then they actually were really good because I have great instincts.
Maybe you should be a talent scout.
I know. Actually, when we were at the last Rough Riders game, I was like, oh, those are scouts. I think that'd be a really cool job. I had the same thought. I was like, I wonder if I understood this sport more, if I could be a good scout.
That'd be fun.
Maybe in my next life.
Or when Mia and Hazel are gone, you can just do
Do
5
I need to go to
things at
college for
once.
this?
Become a scout. What's Jess doing now?
Oh, the laundromat.
Oh, laundry mat. Open a coffee shop.
Oh my gosh. You're gonna be so busy.
Yeah. But go to sleep by 6.
I do. I want to go to bed by 8.
Okay.
So yeah, that's where it came from.
Okay. So you just kind of stuck with them.
Yeah, I do. I like them. I don't know. It feels natural. Like I was even thinking this year they switched up their whole a lot of their roster. I was like, maybe I should like a new team, and I just can't. So I get what Scott says. Like once you're kind of loyal to a team,
you're loyal.
Yeah.
Have you ever been to New Jersey?
Yeah.
Okay.
We've been to a couple of games out there, and also to New Jersey, and it's not really a great state.
But we like their hockey team.
Yeah, we do.
Nice.
So, no, that's what I would say. You said I'm passionate about. I wouldn't say passionate, but something I really do enjoy doing is I like experiences. Like I like going to sporting events with Scott. That's something we have in common. But I like traveling and experiencing new things. I think it's fun. It doesn't have to be anywhere grand. I mean, it could be somewhere in Iowa. But like, we just stayed at a cool hotel this last weekend for a wedding in downtown Des Moines, and it was like a quirky, like vintagey kind of cool hotel that if Scott and I were going, we probably would never choose to stay in this hotel, but it was where the wedding was at, and I was like, this is kind of a cool hotel. And I just like stuff like that. I like getting out.
Yeah. If you had a day to yourself, like alone, what would you spend it on? Or is that a really scary thought for you to be alone for a day?
I would love to be alone for a day. Let's see. Like, how would I spend it? I just feel so overwhelmed if I have a whole day. Like, are you productive? Are you lazy? Are you both? Are you not? Do you do something? What do you eat? Like,
What do you
so many things. A day is not enough, Joe. Give me a week.
If you had a week. And we'll just keep broadening it out.
Yeah.
You have a week, you can go anywhere in the world.
That's right. And now there's a month because you're stuck in.
No budget.
Oh, no. If I had a day and I wasn't being productive, I would have to be out of my house. Because being in my house, I would be like, I'd have to do something productive without anybody home. I'd be like, let's clean things and purge things and no one's here. I'd probably go to a spa somewhere and get a massage or a pedicure or something, like pampering. If there's unlimited resources. No budget. Something like that. And have lunch with Jerra and some other people. Probably go on a date with my husband.
The question was, you're alone.
Oh, I'm alone. But I want to see people.
Yeah,
I don't have my kids.
Question answered. You wouldn't be alone.
So I would spend the day at the spa. I'd be pampered.
You probably read a book, right?
Yeah,
Like,
I'd
spend
take
some
a
time.
book.
I like to read books.
Do you like reading books?
I haven't in a long time, but I used to.
Yeah. So something I was kind of wondering about earlier. I mean, you're a fairly motivated person, but it's obviously difficult, at least for myself, to stay motivated at home. And for myself, I think that's partially because I work outside of the home, and so I come home and it's like, out there is work, in here is rest. But obviously, you know, for you as a stay-at-home mom, like work and rest are in the same place.
Which means there's never rest.
True. How do you keep yourself productive at home? Do you feel like you rely a lot on scheduling things, or like to-do lists, or how does that work for you?
I really love to-do lists. I think I've chilled out a lot as my girls have gotten older. I kind of just balance it out a little bit as I just create a to-do list, and once I've gone through that to-do list or my priorities for the day, I feel good about that. And, you know, there's plenty more I could be doing. I could go through the tub that's sitting in the corner of my room since February. Definitely could go through that, but I'm not going to. And I probably could go through the messy table in my mudroom, but that's not something that I really care about right now.
No.
So I'm not going to.
How do you prioritize those things? Because I know some people have like a really difficult time prioritizing. Like they feel like everything needs done right now.
Oh yeah, I can definitely relate to that. I've talked with Jerra about that many times with Barnabas. Of like, probably one of the hardest things about my brain is it doesn't like to shut off, and my personality feels one of that everything feels urgent. That I can have a hard time discerning what is really urgent.
Yeah.
So I can logically recognize that tub and those tables are not urgent and they're not a priority, but they will sit in my peripheral, and I know that they're sitting there and they're unfinished business in a sense. And so like in my mind, it's like a running list of, well, I have in 2 weekends, we have nothing going on. I'm going to tackle those in 2 weekends, but day to day, they are not a priority. Because day to day, like our homeschooling, all these appointments that I have this week, we're coming off of a couple weeks of traveling to weddings and doing things. Like, I don't need to run myself ragged for 2 things that are not in our way and affecting like our everyday life. Like my husband doesn't care about them. My kids don't care about those things. Like, we need to get through the things that are affecting our everyday life. And that are like consuming our days. Like, those are my priorities.
Yeah. How do you feel like you were able to grow into that perspective? You said you kind of were able to chill out as your kids got older. How do you feel like you grew into that perspective?
Well, some of it is renew. Just like, why do you feel like, why did I feel the need to like get all of those things done? Some of it is my husband, of what is his preference of what I get done every day. And he's very gracious of what he has preferences of and what he wants done. And I think some of it is just recognizing my limits. Like, if I keep doing all of those things that feel urgent and I can't discern them, then I will keep crashing and burning. Because that's something that my personality, like, I can do. Like, I can go, and then I can crash and burn consistently if I don't pull the reins back. It's not healthy for me. And so after you do that for years,
you learn.
You kind of learn, like, oh, like, I knew this fall was going to be very busy for us of traveling for a bunch of weddings and trips, that I knew that these couple of weeks, like, it was going to be, these are the priorities, and like, that's just experience and learning from
and
past.
Planning, you plan very well.
I had the forethought going into the fall of, like, I knew this week was really full. This is what we're doing is the bare minimum every day of school. These are our priorities. School, spend time with girls, appointments, run errands. This is what we're doing. Everything else doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's a really good point of being able to, because you mentioned that before too, just being able to look ahead and say, like, I will have time then. And so, like, I can do the things that I know really have to be done right now, and I can know that that thing that I also feel like needs to be done can be done then. That does seem like a really good perspective and a really good way to
give yourself peace.
Combat that a little bit. I think it's kind of interesting that when you mention, like, these things are just in your peripheral, I feel like that's kind of like a guy versus girl thing, where, like, at least for myself as a guy, like, the entire house can be a complete mess, but if I'm focused on this one thing, like, nothing else really matters. And I mean, for myself, I am in my head way too much, and so I'll just be walking around our house, and I won't even be in our house. I'm somewhere in my head, and it's like, it doesn't, like, Elena will be like, oh, our house, it's screaming at me, it's so dirty, and I'm like, I'm just sitting on the couch, and like, I'm relaxing. And so for myself, I mean, that's been, like, something that I really need to grow in, is recognizing, oh, maybe Elena doesn't feel the same way as me. Maybe she's not as oblivious to the giant messes in our house.
Well, I mean, because it's also, like, our domain. So I can't speak for Elena, but, like, that's my domain. So I feel like that's my responsibility. So it's just staring at me.
Yeah.
My responsibility is staring at me.
Well, if you're at work, you wouldn't just be oblivious to the deck you need to build.
Yeah, that's true.
So she's not going to be oblivious to the pile of laundry on
that she didn't finish that she didn't do, or like an uncompleted.
Yeah.
And so.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say I was thinking about what are you guys passionate about? And I just thought, like, you guys are really passionate about marriage and child rearing.
Yeah.
You didn't say that, and you guys are like putting on parenting.
I know. Well,
marriage
I've already
counseling.
like doted on my husband so much that.
Well, you can continue. This is the place. I wish I had more opportunities.
Yeah, I am very passionate. We like talking about marriage.
Mm-hmm.
We are very passionate about parenting our children. I don't know if I really love talking about parenting. I love talking about our parenting.
Yeah. And like how you guys do it.
Yeah, well, it's a lot of work.
Or are you guys passionate about marriage?
We just really love marriage. I mean, I don't know. We like being married to each other.
Mm-hmm.
And we've had a lot of fun. And we just, we enjoy talking about it. We've learned a lot from each other.
You guys enjoy your marriage so much, and you want that for other people.
Yeah. Like we want everybody
them.
else to enjoy their marriage because we do.
And you guys enjoy your kids so much that you want other people to. You guys enjoy your kids. And you want other people to get to that point as well. So it's just about helping and loving people. I don't want them to
leave me. Don't leave me. Are you listening, girls? Don't leave me.
You can look right at the camera.
Don't leave me. I'll buy you everything you want.
Jess's plans as a grandma. I will buy them things.
Making promises I can't keep.
To your girls.
Speaking of that, what are some of your favorite things about Mia and Hazel?
My favorite things about Mia and Hazel.
I guess especially like as they've grown into their own persons.
So I really love how much they are so much themselves, but I can see so much of Scott and myself in them. It's just so funny to see that. So I really love... Well, one I love right now because they're teenagers. It's been really fun to kind of see both of them coming into their style, like of clothes. Like they're teenage girls, so it's fun seeing that they're starting to come into their own style of clothing and what that looks like. And it's not entirely fun shopping because clothing is kind of annoying right now. Like, I mean, it's always frustrating as a girl, but like clothing in general in the stores right now is not pleasant. But it's like fun to share that with them, I guess. Like, and like doing the hair and the whole makeup thing has been like a unique experience and fun because I didn't share that with my mom. Like my mom was not interested in like clothes and hair and makeup, and so that's been kind of a fun journey the last couple of years, and will continue to be so. But Mia as a person, she's like so much like her dad. She's a really hard worker. She's got good sarcasm, to the point that like you don't really know if she's serious or not. Like that you're like, wait a minute, are you messing with me kind of thing? And I love that about her. And she really, really cares about her friends. Just so much cares about her friends. So I love her heart for that. Hazel, when she is happy at like her most joyful, like that girl talks and talks and talks about like her birds and her friends, and like you can just tell her moods just by like how much she's talking to you about things. And I love how she wants to find out like all the information she can about what she's in love with, whether it's cats or birds, or she loves her pets and her animals like with her whole heart. That kid loves so big, and it's so admirable. I love that about her, and she's always up for an adventure. I feel like she's gonna be my like adventurer. Like I'm gonna be like, you want to go away for a weekend, and she'll be yes, let's go. We'll leave Mia and Scott home. They'll be homebodies. So, yeah. But it's really cool. They're so much like us and so much not like us. It's cool.
So I saw a little glimpse of that recently. We were shopping together, and I had bumped into a few things, and Mia goes, Jerra, there's a shelf there, just in case you didn't see it. And she was kind of sarcastic a few times, but it was funny and lighthearted, and it wasn't like making fun of me, but it was just like, I saw you do that. And once I was standing like squishing something, and she comes over and looks at me and goes, oh my goodness, just to like let me know she saw me. But her bantering is very fun. I very much enjoyed it, and it made me feel closer to her and that we're friends. And then while we were shopping, I told Hazel, hey, you know what would be fun? And she said, what? I said, you should try on clothes that are not your style at all. And she looks at me and says, we have different ideas of fun. Like, that is what she said. And then, because we were in Boot Barn or whatever, and I would pull something out and show it to her, and she'd roll her eyes, and I'd pull another thing out, and she'd like make a face and say, ew, like never. All these different clothes, I was just trying to get a rise out of her. She was like, absolutely not. You will never make me do this. And I just thought in my head, this is Jess. Like, she knows I'm not going to try to force her to do anything, but just like the firm, we have different ideas of fun. Yeah. Like, that was no.
No way. You will not make me do this.
You will not. And she was just not willing.
That's me. I think that stubbornness is from her dad.
Oh, really? And then she was walking around like, can you believe someone worse this time? Your kids are
That's from your mom.
Yeah, like, I can't believe And Asmi is walking around like shopping because she loves that.
All of it.
Like, she loves that store.
That's probably why she said it. It's probably a David sister.
Mess with her sister. Anyways. So I wanted to. That's all great. I mean, I love clothes too. I wanted to get back a little bit to your relationship with God. So we didn't really pick it back up, like the story of your relationship with God when you got here to New Life. I know Scott's said like when you guys got to New Life, felt like, oh, at least he felt like, oh, this is authentic Christianity. Mm-hmm. How do you feel like that was for you? What do you feel like helped you realize, or what was the realization that needed to happen, I guess? If that makes sense.
Yeah, I feel like for me, we came here that first Sunday, and then we joined the life group that Kurt had started with like young married couples, engaged couples. I don't remember what he was talking about at the life group. But then, so we're coming most Sundays in that life group, but Scott was still like traveling a lot for his job, like working a bunch. And then we would still kind of go back home on the weekends in a sense, like his parents were 2 hours away, but we had missed like a life group or a couple Sundays, and your dad like called us and was like, where have you been? And we're like, like, why is the pastor calling us out? Like, literally calling us. He's like, well, we've missed you, and you've been missing a couple, like, Sundays. Like, oh, we've been, like, out of town visiting family. He's like, oh, were you coming back? Well, we are now. Like, we weren't intentionally, like, not coming back, but, like, we were plugged in, but not really plugged in. Like, we were here, and we were coming, and it was great, but, like, we were still, like, homesick, kind of, like, we missed our parents. And so it was like, okay, well, that was like just another like kind of hook in us, like people cared about us, like, and that made a huge impact, because now like when people don't come to life group or people don't come to church on Sunday, it's like, hey, we should tell them that we miss them. Like, we should let them know, like, someone noticed that they weren't here. Because what if no one's ever told them that?
Yeah.
Like, it might make them uncomfortable, but uncomfortable is good. Because that, like, what if no one's ever said, like, hey, we missed you on Sunday? Like, hey, we noticed you were gone. Like, you know, after only being here for a month or 2 or 6 months even, like, And then we kept coming, and things were good. And then we got pregnant with Mia, and I think we were like kind of sitting here at one point, and we were like, okay, we're coming, but we still don't really feel like we belong. And Scott and I have just always been both the type of people of like, well, this is our problem. What do we do to fix that? We should help at Awanas. Like, how do you feel like we go to a life group, come on Sundays? We should just join something else. Like, so we started helping at Awanas and just kept being more and more involved and getting to know more and more people. And more, I think I was trying out Barnabas groups, but I don't recall any that were like super impactful. I think it was like try some out. They weren't really working, or schedules, or they weren't really like formal maybe as like they are now, or like said, I don't remember. But and just continuing to be plugged in and like just do the work to like grow with the community and the body here, and commit to that and not like give up there. And Scott was busy working. I think I was working too. And then we had Mia, and then things start shifting, because I think when you become a parent too, like I feel like that's also part of your journey, because now you're responsible for another child, and you're also responsible for guiding their faith. And like things shifted for me in different ways, because around that time, like your dad was doing messages on like what was happening in public schools and different stuff, and I was like, Scott, have we ever thought about homeschooling? Because like we grew up in small towns where homeschooling was not. I think there was one girl that was homeschooled in my whole town, and she was weird, like because it was one kid, and like that was my experience with homeschooling until we came to New Life, you know. So like, and I was like, you know, this is what he said about the schools. This is what I like about like the kids at New Life. And so like then we were starting to talk about homeschooling and like what does that look like, and like just different changes with that, and like how God was changing our heart with that. Well, like God was working in Scott's life, which he shared a couple weeks ago. And then I think another huge shift for me, besides like the homeschooling thing, was a big one, because that was like, oh my gosh, we're pregnant just having a baby, so like we're years away from like actually homeschooling. But to even like mention that when both of us come from backgrounds of like, that's weird. A huge another shift for me in my journey with God would have been after we lost Samuel, because that was such a like a blind side of like, I don't know, it was so, I don't know how to explain it, because we had dropped Mia off at a friend's house when we were on our way to our ultrasound. And on our way to our ultrasound, I had told Scott, I don't think I've ever felt the baby move. Like, I remember saying that to him, like, but we had how old was Mia? She had just turned 1. And so I was like, but I've been raising a baby and like not sitting around just thinking about, you know, the second baby. Like, you know, your first pregnancy, it's all you think about. And then when you have another baby and you're pregnant, you're busy. Like, you're not just sitting around like
waiting for them.
And I wasn't someone who loved being pregnant. Like, I just was pregnant. And so when we went to the ultrasound, and the tech said, like, started doing stuff, I was like, there was no fluttering, there was nothing wrong, or nothing showing up, and she had left. Like, Scott didn't share this, but one of the first things he said, as soon as the ultrasound tech had left, he said, our God is still the same God. Like, he has not changed. And I was like, I just started sobbing, because I was like, no, something's wrong. And he's like, no, our God is still the same God. And so, you know, our doctor came back and all that, and then we spent a few days in the hospital. And like for the next week was a hard week, but I remember just like thinking, we have two choices here. Like, we can turn away and just be angry and mad, or we can cling to Jesus and just trust him that like he is going to work out things for the greater good. And like just be remembering like this is just a huge turning point in our life, and choosing to cling to him and like reaching out to your dad of like, what Bible verses can we just meditate on, and what books would you recommend for grief, which is still a book that I don't know if he'd still recommend it, but I still have people reach out to me and ask me for it to this day. And then
What book?
I don't have it. I can get it to you. I don't know.
What's the name?
I don't know off the top of my mind. I didn't know I was going to share this.
That's okay.
But someone had just asked it for me, or asked me about it a couple months ago, and whatnot. I have it in my library, but I can let you guys know. But
we'll link it in the show notes.
Yeah.
Right next to Jess's document of business ideas.
Of all my business ideas, grief and business ideas. And so, like, I think that was like the next, like kind of the last, like, this is it, like, this is what we're doing, like, for me kind of thing. And there's like just nothing left for, I mean, we're constantly sanctifying ourselves in, right? Like journey is long, but I feel like there was like no other, like, this is it, I'm all in. Like, I'm committed to being here and getting to know everybody. And there's no doubt that like we're leaving New Life or leaving these people or anything. This is our choice and whatnot. So.
Mm-hmm.
So what made you feel like you only have those two options, or how were you able to pull yourself like above water for a little bit to even be able to think that way?
I have no idea.
And to even seek help.
I feel like that's just, I don't know. I really can't. I don't know. I just feel like that's just
how you are.
That's how, I don't know, how I feel like the couple of really big trials in my life that have been really impactful in my life, I like feel like I have a few days of like intense, well, I wouldn't say that would be a pity party, because that was like a lot of grief and obviously tragic and stuff, but hard things happen and I will like, you know, grieve, spiral, have my out, and then it's like, okay, like just kind of have this, like I have two choices, like I can do this or I can do this, you know, and this just isn't an option. Like, I know God can handle my anger, and that's okay. All those feelings are okay. Like, he can take any emotion or anger or anything that I have for him. But in all the trials that I've had, what has God done? Like, he's always brought me closer to him. And so that's what he's going to do every time. And so that's what I'm going to continue to choose to do. So this choice just isn't an option. But losing Samuel was like a really big first trial. And it was just so blindsiding that it was just like, you know, like, well, here I am, Lord. Like, what are we going to do about this? Like, kind of thing.
Well, you just, like, you hear about that happening to other people, but you never think it's going to happen to you.
Right.
And so you don't expect it. And it's just doesn't feel like something you can really come back from.
Well, and I think and Scott kind of alluded to it, but which I'm so crazy shocked that he remembered this, but was kind of a God thing, is like 2 weeks prior to that, I did read a book about a gal who had lost a baby and had a miscarriage. And someone was like, why are you reading that while you're pregnant? And I was like, I have no idea. It's probably not smart. I mean, it was a Christian author, well known, and she was reading about, or I can't remember now the whole story, but I think she had lost her baby further along and whatnot. And I was like sobbing because I was pregnant, and I was like, this is so sad. But then, like, in hindsight, I was kind of like, well, I think the Lord kind of knew what he was doing, because I feel like it prepared my heart a little bit of like,
this is a possibility.
Because up until that point, I hadn't known anyone who had walked through that. And then after it happened, obviously all these women were like, oh no, I, you know, had experienced something similar. And obviously, but so that was like a huge turning point. And I feel like probably like the closest that I had experienced up until that point. And just like continued since then.
Yeah.
I guess.
What do you feel like you've learned trying to disciple other women and help them grow in their relationship with God? Because I know you're fairly involved with the Titus 2 ministry out of church. I don't really know how or why that got started, but for some reason I associate you with it. So
yeah, a couple of us did start that several years ago. What was the question?
What have you learned?
What have I learned?
What have you learned about discipling women, and just what has that journey been like, going from I'm being discipled by these other people, and now I'm discipling other people?
Well, I've learned a lot about myself, for sure. And I think I've learned a lot of compassion does not always come very natural for me. I don't know if that makes sense. I don't feel like
It makes sense, Jess.
I'm not a very natural compassion. I think the resilience and the boisterous part of me is very like, well, you just do these things. Like, things are hard. You just do them.
I feel like you have a different kind of compassion, not the one people would always. Because I feel like you have compassion.
Yeah, and so...
But a lot of people who are naturally compassionate have a really hard time being resilient. It's like one person rejects them, and it's like they go into a whole spiral.
Yes. And so I feel like discipling and mentoring women has taught me that to be all things to all women has been a little like, oh, like I can have a gentler side of me. I don't have, like, this is not always who I am. Like, there is a softer side. There is a quieter side. There is, and it might not always be natural, but I like have Jesus inside of me. And so I do have many sides to me. And it has been, and sometimes uncomfortable, but it has grown me in a lot of ways. And so it has taught me a lot of things, and it's been a really cool process to get to know a lot of women and see that side of ministry and step out of my comfort zone in ways that I like maybe, wouldn't have like 15 years ago, Jess, I guess, if that makes sense. Like, I would have maybe been like, ooh, no, I could never do something like that. In a sense, like, that doesn't sound like something. But...
Well, I would say I'm a disciple of Jess. I don't know if she would claim me, but that's what I'm telling people.
Well, you kind of harassed me to be
Yeah, I did. And it was when you were trying to take a break to focus on your family or whatever you guys were doing at the time. I don't remember.
Yeah.
But Joseph had said, you should join a Barnabas with Jess McMaster. Do you know her?
I said that?
Yeah. And I said, who is that? You're like, well, she's this lady. She sits where you guys sit. And you guys are very similar. And I said, oh,
I don't remember
this at all. But
Joseph, you said like 3 really good things to me in my life that have actually been very helpful and done.
And I don't remember any of them.
You don't remember, but...
and I was the first person to meet you from New Life.
First person to meet me. You didn't show up to cook dinner for the core, so I was at the church cooking because you forgot, and you said, buy groceries, and I'll try to get to the church to cook on time. And I was like, he's not coming. So then I start cooking, and that's when Josh asked me to date him because you weren't there. Was the only reason I was there.
Just gotta say, sometimes it's a good thing to be flaky.
Anyways, he says, you gotta join a Barnabas with Jess McMaster. You guys are very similar. And then we go to a women's ministry, like a women's thing.
It's like a retreat thing in Michigan.
And Jess was driving by herself. She was driving there.
Yeah, because we were in Pennsylvania for work.
Yeah, and I meet her there for a little bit, and I do think to myself, this lady has a loud laugh. But you made the same comment about me. You said I was very loud at the retreat, and I was like, what?
But you were loud.
It's like, you're loud. And then I ask, like, I message her and I say, hey, like, you should join a Barnabas with me. Like, I don't know, I'm pretty great. Like, I don't know why.
I think you would like me.
You would like me. I don't know why you would say no.
And I was like, I'm kind of taking a break from things right now. Would you want to meet every week? And you're like, yes.
Yeah. At first she was like, this girl's asking a lot. Like, since then, it's just been so wonderful. Like, I could cry talking about Jess. Like, I genuinely love your family so much. And in your discipleship, you could say you're not easily compassionate, but maybe it's just the type of person I am. But the type of compassion you have, I feel like that is exactly what I need. And it's not compassion of like sit in your mess forever. Oh. It's you are valid in how you feel, but get up. Like we gotta get going. And you're always there to tell the truth, but it's not like truth of things I can't change. It's truth that like you are capable of changing it, and I'm not asking you to change it by yourself. I will help you to change those things in your life. You are very consistent. When I don't text Jess back, and she's very good at communication. If I don't text her back for maybe a few days, she texts me, "Hey, are you okay?" And I'm like, "Everything is terrible." Thank you for messaging
SOS.
me. Yes, it's ghetto over here. And she's like, "Oh, okay." But I feel like in us having like being similar, but also so different with I don't respond to text messages. I'm not very organized, and you being that way and having grace. And I bet I make you mad sometimes in that like that. But you having grace for all of that, and me never feeling like shame around you, and our friendship being so easy, and you and Scott doing our marriage counseling, but then not even just leaving us alone. Because I feel like other people do that, and then just the people are now married, and it's not your problem. But I feel like me and Josh are your problem.
You are our problem.
We are in your life a lot. You guys have not left us alone. And like, I feel like the Barnabases and relationships you want to be in are the ones you don't feel like you can leave. I don't feel like I can leave Jess.
I won't let you. You're in my blood.
What are the other impactful things that I've said to you in your life?
Okay, so there was the one I recently thinking about was we were at family vacation, and Joseph said like consuming politics is kind of pointless. Like knowing what's happening around the world somewhere you can't do anything about it. What's the point? And I was fighting a little bit like there is a point to this. It's very important that I consume this, but he was like, then what do you do with it? And I was
this vacation or was
no,
that this was like last
couple,
year? A couple years ago?
I think so.
Because I feel like since then I've consumed a lot of politics things
Well,
and I can't do anything about.
But because you said that to me and I thought about it and I didn't feel like I was like gonna be honest then because I didn't want to be wrong, I decided, like I don't need to know all these things around the world, but I also want to do things about the things I do know about. Like you challenged me. Like, if you're going to know about all the wrong things, what are you doing about it? Mm-hmm. And that's kind of where the passion of, like, the bill that we recently started to talk about, and I've been very passionate about abortion, like those kinds of things, and voting small in my community, and then voting big. Mm-hmm. But also having compassion for people who think differently than me. That was another thing I felt like it was very impactful that has like made a change in my life. I really appreciate you not coming to the church that night to make dinner for a core, because then Josh was there and I was there, and then you recommending me to be in a Barnabas with Jess. And then you being the first person to meet me at Kirkwood and offering me $100 if I sign this thing. So you got me to New Life. You got me in a Barnabas with Jess, and you got me marrying Josh.
Wow.
There you go. 3 big life changes.
And he wasn't even trying.
I was not trying.
Just being you.
I guess.
Just yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I vaguely remember the debate that we had about politics a couple years ago. But my recent thing has been I've been listening to this history podcast where he's basically just talking about lots of massacres and like tragedies, and it's like there's absolutely nothing you can do about that because it's in the past. And I've been kind of emotionally overwhelmed by some of those things.
So maybe go back and take some of that advice.
Yeah, maybe I should take my own advice.
You know, that kind of reminds me, Jess, a few years ago, you kind of stopped consuming too much politics, too.
Yeah, it gets a little overwhelming for me if I watch too much politics. It's like just negative, and you can't really, I mean, like you can go out and vote like this year, but like besides that, you can't really control anything that's going on in politics. And so I don't really, when it's not, I don't even really pay attention to election year, but I don't really pay attention to politics.
Well, yeah, I remember it was a intentional decision on your part of like, these things are annoying me. Like, I'm just not in the spirit. I'm not joyful. Yeah. I'm going to make the change to not consume this. But then you did say, I will check in once in a while just so I know what's like.
Like, I like to have like a pulse on it of like what's going on. I mean, it's similar with our rentals. Like, we're in an HOA with our rentals. So I'm in some Facebook groups. But where our rentals are at, there's like full-time residents, and then there's part-time, and then there's people who own rentals. Mm-hmm. And the full-timers, there's a lot of full-timers who do not like the people who own the rentals. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I understand why. Like, I can see why. But there are some very hostile people that put some very divisive things in those Facebook groups. Okay. And, like, but I want to be in the Facebook group so I know, like, what are some of the things coming up? Like, what are some, like, there's a lot of issues with trash stuff. There's, like, some things being put about the board on there. Stuff like that. Like, I want to be in the know, but then, like, the other day I was reading the comments and, like, some of the people were so mean, and Scott's like, why are you in the comments? I'm like, I'm not writing anything yet.
Yeah, what is it about comment sections all over the internet that just, like, the worst things happen?
Why do they hate us so much? You know, I mean, I know why they do, but, like, they don't have to be so mean about it.
Yeah.
So I gotta find this balance.
Yeah, I read comments too.
Being in the know, but not
too much.
Overwhelming myself of like, gosh, these people need to back off a little bit.
And then you go and tell Scott, and he's like, I don't need to know because I read comments, and Josh is like, I don't need to know. Please don't tell me. No, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like this is a good spot to try and wrap this up.
I have one more thing just to brag on the McMasters a little bit. You looked at me. I genuinely really love your kids. And I would like to say, like, I don't know if the McMasters, they're putting on their parenting and marriage thing, so you should sign up for it. I don't know when this comes out. But also, I would, like, Josh and I, we get along very well. And, like, our relationship is pretty good. But I really feel like our first, second, and third, fourth year, like, all of them have been much better than I don't know what the common story is, but I really feel like I owe a lot of that to the McMasters and their discipleship and their love and their welcoming us into their homes, and not only into their homes, but into their lives. Like, I feel like we're so involved in their lives. And I really would encourage people out there to be that plugged into our church, to find families that you guys are living life together. Find a Barnabas, find a life group where you guys are all living life together. Like, our life group has a high attendance rate. Almost everybody comes every week. To find people like that and to be vulnerable with them, to live life with them, because it just makes everything much more worthwhile.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your nice words.
You're welcome.
We are doing a parenting and marriage panel on Saturday, November 16th, and there will be childcare provided. And it's just a straight up panel. So that means, like, families can come drop their kids off, and then couples will just be able to ask all the practical questions that they want to know, like anything from whatever to whatever. And the panel, there'll be like 3, 4, 5 couples up with experienced veteran couples to kind of give a variety of answers of their experience with things. It'll be, I think, parenting's first, and then marriage is in the afternoon. And so it'll be good. A couple hours for each topic, and it'll be great. Mm-hmm. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. Jess, any encouragement or anything you want to leave the listeners with?
Oh, I didn't plan for encouragement.
I'm sorry.
That's not my spiritual gift.
You've already said a lot of
What is your spiritual gift? That was on the list.
Laundry.
Oh, right. Okay. Laundry.
My spiritual gift, I would say, would be probably serving.
Communication,
serving, hospitality.
Yeah.
Would be it. Mm-hmm. I told Scott, I was like, I would think house management, like managing, but if you walked into my house, you would be like, it does not feel this way right now, but it does feel this way up here. It just doesn't look this way. let's see, encouragement.
Just anything you want to leave the listeners with.
Communicate.
Okay.
I feel like communication is always good.
And if you need to stay in an Airbnb,
I got you.
yeah.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us and
thanks for
letting
having
us
me.
question you. Thank you, everybody who's listening. We appreciate your time, especially if you've made it to this point in the show and you haven't clicked off something else. Yeah, have a great whatever time of day it is for you. Goodbye.